This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. Tonight's class, the food is, and the class is actually sponsored by Anonymous. So thank you very much for the Anonymous donors that help us with the delicious spread that we have over here, that I'm sure is the only reason why we have such a beautiful crowd today. And a big crowd is because of the delicious food that we have over here. Okay, again, so people who are always welcome. So women are always welcome on Thursdays at BJX 1601 Avenue Quentin Road. Thank you. 1601 Quentin Road at 8 p.m. usually. Did I say all the information? Thursdays 8 p.m. at 1601 Quentin Road, Brooklyn, New York. Zip code, I don't know, 11229. Okay. Men's class are on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. at Bet Jehuro at 630 Avenue S. At 8 p.m. This coming up week, there is not going to be a men's class, but we have another wedding. So I'm not one of the guys that are in the class is going to be getting married, B'ezrat Hashem. So the class is can't say canceled, just postponed to next week, which is the next Tuesday. In any case, everyone is always invited and encouraged to attend. Okay, so tonight we're going to be speaking about a very important idea that, to be honest, a lot of people that are from birth and well, the truth is, everything that we speak about, people even that have been religious since they were younger, don't really get to learn much about. However, tonight I think even sticks out a little bit even more. What's going to be even more interesting is because majority of the time, let's say the men, what they spend when they're learning, they're spending Gemara. Majority of the time, they don't know actually the basis, the foundation of how it came about. So, B'ezrat Hashem, tonight we're going to be speaking about that. But we're going to be speaking about the history of the Torah, not just the oral law. We're actually going to start from day 6 of creation. And the reason for that is that I get very often questions that people ask that state basically that Judaism may have not been the first monotheistic religion. So to the ignorant people that ask me these questions, what I usually respond is, who said the idea of monotheism started with Judaism? The idea of monotheism started off way before Judaism. And in fact, the first person here, let's see if we could open it up a little bit over here. The first person that spoke to God. Adam, very good. Second person, let's see how far we could go. Before that, Chava, very good. Third, Cain, oh, very good. Okay, good. So what you see over here is that the communication between God and human beings did not wait until Moshe Rabbeinu, did not wait until Har Sinai. We already had communication with God since the beginning of time, since literally when Adam was created. Now, when Adam was created, and of course Noach was also, you had prophecy, spoke to God, and we had many other prophets between Noach and Adam that also spoke to God. But what's very important is that God also gave Adam Harishon 6 commandments. He gave him 6 commandments. Later, a 7th one was added, and then it turned into, instead of the 6 Adam laws, it turned into the 7 Noahide laws. But in essence, it actually came from the beginning from Adam. What came from Adam? Number 1, the first law was you're not allowed to serve avodah zarah. You're not allowed to worship idolatry. That's number 1. Number 2, you're not allowed to curse God. Unfortunately, no matter how upset you get and how bad your day is and how whatever, you're never allowed to curse God. Number 3, you're not allowed to murder. This should be pretty easy for the majority of people. Number 4 is do not steal. Number 5 is Gilui Arayot, so immorality. So this is like no incest, no adultery, no homosexuality, no anything else that's, I think pretty obvious. Number 6 is to establish a court of laws. These 6 laws were given since the time of Adam HaRishon, which means is that the Torah wasn't the first time that I'm using air quotes, that a religion was brought into the world by God. In fact, already, and you can't really call it, it wasn't really per se a religion, but it was you had to follow certain laws in order to follow the way of God. And those were the 6 commandments that God gave to Adam HaRishon from the beginning of time, that this is what everybody need to follow, need to go off. Then came Noach, and then the 7th one was added. The 7th one was you're not allowed Ever Menachai, you're not allowed to eat from a live animal. Now, why was this? Anybody know why this was added now? Why not beforehand? Very good, excellent. Beforehand, they didn't eat any meat. Only afterwards they started eating meat. So now that they started eating meat, the law was that you're not allowed to eat from a limb from a live animal. And this would seem like common sense. Unfortunately, there are certain communities, countries in the Far East that tend to disagree, and they actually eat live animals. And I have seen, they'll eat baby octopuses, they'll dip it in something, and then they'll eat it. I've actually seen, and this is a delicacy, to eat live baby mice. Just if you don't know what part of the world it's coming from, then welcome to the 21st century and open up a newspaper. But if you really don't, it's I can't say the Asian community, but that part of the world has a particular delicacy with, beetles, cockroaches, other dog, animals that they tend to eat that the other parts of the world do not eat. But that's not such a problem. Because if they kill it, whatever it is, they're allowed to eat it however. But if you're eating it live, then it's a problem. It's tzar b'alachaim. You're causing a lot of problems to the animals, a lot of pain, and that is not allowed. And you see them; they actually eat it live. They actually eat it live. I don't understand it, and I hope to never understand it. But this is a very big problem. This is a violation of one of the 7 Noahide commandments. So we see over here that even though the Torah, Judaism in itself, began about 3,300 years ago, the commandments from God already started since the beginning of time. Monotheism already was since the beginning of time. And what brings into an interesting point is there were yeshivot, there were schools of learning that were before the Torah was given, like Shem ve'Ever, the yeshivat of Shem ve'Ever. We know that Yaakov Avinu learned in yeshiva of Shem ve'Ever. What were they learning over there? They were reviewing the 6 of the 7 laws again and again and again and again. What were they learning for so long? And what's very interesting is why did Yaakov Avinu go to Shem ve'Ever? He just learned with Yitzchak, his father, his grandfather Abraham Avinu. He needed now to go to Shem ve'Ever to teach him something that he didn't learn. What was the difference that he learned over there that now he didn't learn over there? These are questions B'ezrat Hashem we're going to answer. We're going to throw one more question we'll answer later on. Is that Rivka, when she was expecting what she didn't know at that point in time was twins, she had a question because when she went by a place of impurities, she felt kicking. When she went by a place of holiness, she felt kicking. She was like, what's going on over here? So she went to Lidroshat Hashem. She went to go and seek God. Who did she go to? She went to Yeshivat Shem ve'Ever. And what did they tell her? They tell her, Shnei goyim bebetnech. You have two nations in your room. And what's interesting is you look at Rashi over there. Rashi over there says that what is it referring to? It's referring to Rabbi and Antoninus. And the question is, what? Out of all the... Rabbi comes from Yaakov, Antoninus come from Esau, and that's what it's referring to. The question is, what are we talking about over here? Why, when Rivka... this is what's going on over here. When Rivka is going... She's like, why? I have a bipolar kid. I don't know. I have 2 kids. What's going on over here? One wants to go out by impurities. One wants to go out in holiness. And I come all of a sudden to Yeshivat Shem ve'Ever. It says, no, there's 2 people. Don't worry. In many generations coming in the future, there's going to be 2 people that come out from each one of these. And that's the reason for that. You have Antoninus and you have Rabbi. How does that answer anything? So B'ezrat Hashem will answer this later on in the class. So the Gemara in Kedushin in page 82 brings down that Avraham Avinu practiced and kept the entire Torah. Now that seems pretty hard to do because being that the Torah wasn't given yet. The question is, how did Avraham do that? How did Avraham Avinu keep the entire Torah? We know the Avot, the Shvatim, they kept the Torah. How did they keep the Torah if the Torah wasn't given yet? Not only that, it says that they even kept the oral law, the rabbinic law, even Eruf Tafshilin. The Gemara says, which means that even the rabbinic laws Avraham Avinu kept. How did he keep it before it came into being? And the answer is the Ramban in Genesis chapter 26 verse 5 says that he was privy to this information through Ruach HaKodesh. He got this information through Ruach HaKodesh, and that's why he kept the Torah. So this answers a very, very important question that I get asked frequently when Bible critics, and we'll speak about this B'ezrat Hashem when we speak about Bible criticism, but when people that are trying to criticize the Bible, they'll try to bring proofs how Judaism is actually copying from other religions. And Judaism is not really first in whatever it is that they had. But an answer is that everyone's Judaism, actually traces back all the way to the beginning of time, but depending on the variance of the level of observance, by who and by where and by when, it all actually depends. But it didn't. It started for an entire nation on Har Sinai about 3,300 years ago, but it actually came into existence. It's a bad word, incorrect word. It was actually practiced even before that. And where this comes into play, we'll see as we speak about these issues that come up. But this is something that I do want you to keep in mind when we get up to the topic that we'll speak about those Bible critics. So, besides Avraham Avinu, we know Noach also had to know the Torah. How do we know that Noach had to know the Torah? It says that Noach had to bring in 7 of the kosher animals and only 2 of the impure animals. How does he know what's impure and what's kosher? How did he know that? He had to know. He had information that the majority of people did not have during that time. The Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky in Emes Yaakov brings down. It says, what exactly was Yaakov Avinu learning in Yeshivat Shem Ve'evel? What was so important over there? Like, what could he get over there that he didn't get from Yitzchak Avinu? And the answer that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky brings down and says something very beautiful, that he was learning the Torah of the Galut, the Torah of the exile, which means is, when he learned with Yitzchak, when Yaakov learned with Yitzchak, he was learning in a secluded environment. There was no distractions. He was learning and he was able to focus on all his learning. Now he knew that he was going out into the world. He is going to eventually come to Lavan, a very deceiving, person that tries to manipulate everything and try to take everything out. Now he had a problem. How am I supposed to keep the Torah in that environment? I know how to keep the Torah in a good environment, but I need to learn how to keep the Torah in that type of environment. So where did he go? He went to Yeshivat Shem Ve'evel. Shem Ve'evel lived through the time of the Tower of Babel, the Dar Flaga. They lived through the whole manipulation, trying to fight against God. They lived through that. It says, they know how to play this game. They know how to live according to righteous life, even in bad places. So he said, Yaakov Avinu, I'm going to go and learn in Yeshivat Shem Ve'evel. And this is something very important. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to guess this one, but of all the Shvatim, actually you should be able to guess this one. I shouldn't say guess, you should be able to say this one. Out of all the Shvatim, which one do we know that Yaakov Avinu learned the most by? Yosef. Very good. Close one with Levi. That's an interesting, thought. But Yosef, what was so interesting about it? Now, of course, he taught, all the Shvatim, but what was so particular about Yosef? Yosef was eventually going to go into exile. He was going to go into Egypt. He's going to be in a very impure. What did Yaakov teach him all the time? He taught them the Torah of the Galos, the Torah of what he learned in Shem Ve'ever. How are you going to be a good Jew when you get into Egypt? When you get into the most impure place in the world, you need to learn how to be a good Jew. I learned it from Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever, and now you're going to be able to learn it as well. And this is what he taught Yosef. So we see over here that the Torah and the laws itself was actually practiced before it actually came into being into a national level. The Torah was actually, there were many laws that were given actually before Har Sinai. For example, you have Rosh Chodesh that was given before Har Sinai. You also have Korban Pesach that was given before Har Sinai. You also, in Mara, the Pasuk tells us that there were 3 laws that were given at Mara. What are they? Number 1, Shabbat, which was given again before the Torah was given. Number 2, the laws of the red cow. And number 3, the laws of civil ordinances, like money matters and dispute and things like that. So the question is asked the Maral, why particularly these 3 things were given before the Torah was given? As we see, the Torah was actually, there were laws that were given before the actual Torah was given. And the Maral answers, and it says, number 1, Shabbat was given because there's so many laws to Shabbat. It's tremendous amount of information that you need to learn to understand Shabbat. So he said this is the time when the Jews have to start practicing and learning these things. Then the red cow. The red cow doesn't have as many laws as Shabbat, but it's so deep that no one can understand it. And when you're learning for Para Aduma, when you're learning about laws, about the red cow, you're learning it l'shem shamayim. You're learning it for the sake of learning it, not for any other reason, because it's very difficult to understand it. And number 3, the money, they learned the laws of dinim, of money and civil ordinances, is according to the Gemara in Baba Batra, page 175b, it speaks and says that if somebody wants to become wise, he should learn the laws of monetary affairs. Why? Because when you're dealing with a monetary case, every single nuance, every single detail completely changes the case. And that's why when people call up for questions, whatever it is, they don't understand. Like if someone's asking, a particular question, one tiny detail could change the entire answer of what the rabbi gives you. So when you're calling a rabbi and when you're giving information, it is very, very important to give every single, what you might think is insignificant, it could be very, very significant. And you have to give all this detail to the rabbi because one nuance over here might change the law completely to something else. And that's why the laws of monetary affairs are, if you want to become wise, you have to know everything. Because you have every little change, your brain is constantly working like a machine. It has to be like, okay, what about I'm going to do this? What about if this happens? What if he says this? What if she said? There's so many differences that come into play. Explains the Maral. Says before the Torah was given, God had to accustom the Jewish people to know how to think this way, to know how to understand the Torah, to know how to penetrate the depths of the Torah. That's why particularly they gave these 3 things. Shabbat for all its details of laws. You should know that the Torah has a lot of details. You have to know exactly what to do. The monetary laws know how to perceive that every single iota of a difference can change the entire law in its entirety. And finally, the Para Aduma, that even though the ultimate purpose of learning it is learning it l'shem shamayim, learning it for the right sake, for the right purpose. So that was before the Torah was given. Now we're moving forward in time to when the Torah was actually given. When the Torah was actually given, there's Rashi in Shemot, page 20, chapter 20, verse 1, that says, "Et kol hadvarim ha'elu," all these things, melamed she'amar hakadosh baruch hu aser hadibur b'dibur echad, that God gave the entire 10 Commandments in one saying. It was like one in unintelligible sound. It was like just one sound. Everything is just all that starts to dip over there. All the 10 Commandments came in one sound. Now we can't understand it, but if you think the way that I thought to explain this, and this is a very bad example, but I think it will just give you a step in the right direction. We deal in practically 3 dimensions, right? More or less, the majority of people in the world. Whatever you want to go to the super, higher, the 4 dimensions. But imagine when you having different dimensions that come into play. Like you would be able to perceive things more than you actually perceive things now. When God gave the Torah, He gave the Torah in one sound. Now we can't understand that. How does one sound get all the 10 Commandments? But one sound gave all the 10 Commandments. Now why did God do that? God did that because to show you that the entire Torah is one essence. It's actually in one essence. Now it was not they couldn't understand it because it's like just one sound. It didn't make any sense to their to the human brain waves. But what then God did is God went and said each and every single commandment separately. Now. Here's another question. How many commandments did the Jewish people hear from God directly? 2. Anybody else say anything else other than 2? Machlok is always a good answer. But what's the other answer? I know it's true. Excellent. Everybody go to her school. Whatever it is you're going to. Okay. Oh, that's where you got that from?
No, the Clay Archive.
Very good. Wow. Rebbitzin in the making. Okay, excellent. Baruch Hashem. So, it's a machloket. It's a machloket. There's a midrash in Shir HaShirim. In Shir HaShirim that says like this, that what the Chachamim said that all 10 commandments were actually given by God. It was all 10, the Jewish people heard all 10 commandments. Rabbi Yehoshua says no, only the first 2. What happened was is that when they heard the first one, they all heard God's voice and they all died. God took the due that God is going to resurrect the people by the time of Mashiach, resurrected them, and He's like, okay, now that you guys are all back, here's number 2. And they all died again. And now God brought back the due and they resurrected again. And then God was like, okay, let's do it. And they were like, no, please do me a favor. It says, we died twice already. Tell the rest of Moshe Rabbeinu. We'll just go through that. So that's according to, that is how Rabbi Yehoshua explains that. They only said the first 2. But there's a midrash in Bamidbar Rabbah that says that all 630 commandments are actually included in the 10 commandments, which means the 10 commandments are the foundation, and all 613 branch out from that. The Gemara in Makot says not only the 10 commandments, but even the first 2 commandments, the entire 630 commandments actually branch from the first 2 commandments. And the Gemara goes and explains every positive mitzvah is represented by Ani Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God. Every positive commandment is represented by that. Every prohibition, every isur, every negative commandment is by the second commandment, which is that you should not have any other gods besides me. And so in essence, what's so important about this, that what we see over here is that the Jewish people, in a different aspect, they actually heard the entire Torah from God. Whether it's the 10 Commandments, whether it's the first 2, it doesn't matter. They heard the entire Torah, directly from God. So let's move forward in history. The Torah was given, Moshe wrote it down. When did Moshe write down the Torah? Just an FYI, he wrote it 40 years after the Torah was given, which means this first started only as oral. Now there are things written down here and there, of course, for notes, but the way that the Torah that we have it today was written for the first time after about 40 years after the Torah was given, right before Moshe passed away. That's when he wrote the Torah. Until then, everything was kept oral. After the Torah was given, it started a time period known as the Nevi'im, the prophets. This is where the prophets, came into being. Does anybody venture to guess how many prophets we had around? 1.2 million. Again, go to the school, guys. Okay, very good. So, roughly around 1.2 million prophets. It's double amount of people that we left from Mitzrayim. This is the Gemara in Megillah, page 14a. But the prophets that we have written down, the only prophets that we have written down are only the prophecies that had a message for the future generations. So there are many prophets that prophesied during that time, but it wasn't written down into the prophets. Why? Because those were dealt only for that particular time period, had nothing to do with the future generations, and hence it didn't have to be kept. But anything that was for the future generations, that's where it was put into play. The difference between Torah and Nach. Right, so we have Torah, which is the Chamishei Torah. Then you have Nach, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim. What is the difference over there? The Torah comes from the word Hora'ah, which means instruction. The Torah is an instruction manual, how to live your life. The Nach was a very big part of it, was to inspire people to do tshuva, to do repentance, to make sure that they go into the right direction. Now, what is the difference between the Nevi'im and Ktuvim? Now, this is the girls' class, so you guys should be aware of basically. Men have no idea. Like, they don't know the difference between Nevi'im and Ktuvim. But women actually, that go through the schooling system actually do learn about these things. So the Nevi'im is on a higher level than the Ktuvim, basically the level of the communication between God to the prophet or God to the to the people was on a higher level. And the idea also, the difference is that the Nevi'im, the prophecy was first a prophecy, so it was spoken to the people, and then it was written down. The Ktuvim, the writings, was meant only particularly for writing it down. That was the initial reason for it was to be written down. But we said before, the Nevi'im are holier, and that's why all the haftarot that we read on Shabbat, we read the Kriyat Torah from the Chamshei Torah, from the 5 books of Moses, all those haftarot actually come from the Nevi'im and not from the Ktuvim. Okay, after the 24 books of Tanakh were closed and sealed, this is where prophecy ended. The books were closed, and you can't add any more. This is why, by the way, we don't have any book on Chanukah. Now, even though Chanukah, there is the Sefer HaMaccabee, there is different books that are in existence, but it didn't make it in Tanakh because that's when prophecy ended. When prophecy ended, the Tanakh was closed. However, the Torah obviously continued, and the Torah continued to be learned from, and there was many more information that needed to be put into play. However, all this was all based on the oral Torah. Now, it wasn't, and this was incorrect. I shouldn't have said there was a new information. This was all, and I don't know if I said that, but if I did, that's wrong. So, did I say that? I didn't say that. What am I even talking about? So why are you guys causing problems at the beginning of it? Okay. So the oral law continued to happen because everybody was teaching based on the oral law. But here is where things started to change drastically. What happened is after the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, the Jewish nation was not ruled by their own anymore. They were ruled by a foreign government, and not only that, Christianity started picking up. And needless to say, Christianity wasn't buddy-buddy with the Jews, per se. There were also persecutions that were going on against the Jews. The Jews were being spread out into exile throughout the entire world. Problems were happening for the Jewish nation. Now, during this time, the rabbis realized that the oral law was supposed to be kept oral. But because of all the problems, because of the persecution, because of the people in exile, because of the weakening of the minds of the Jewish people are going to start forgetting the oral law. So what happened? What did the rabbis do? The rabbi decided that the oral law needs to be placed in writing. It needs to be placed, and for the first time in history, it was placed in writing for a public, for the public forum. Previously, you had rabbis that wrote their own personal notes and things like that, but it was never placed in writing as an official, official book. Only came the Mishnah, which was where the writing came into being. Now, you have to bear with me. Whoever is not familiar with Mishnah and the Gemara, just bear with me. I might say some words you might not understand. Majority of you, I would venture to say, do understand what I will be talking about. During the Mishnah, the rabbis were known as the Tanaim. The Tanaim lived from the time of 30 BCE to roughly around 200 Common Era. So you're talking about roughly 230 years that... Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. So about roughly around 230 years that they were in existence. There were 5 generations of Tanaim. Generation number 1 was Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel, which I'm sure everybody here is familiar with. That was the first generation of Tanaim. Generation number 2 was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Horkinus, and the convert Onkelos. Onkelos actually was in the time of, in the second generation of the Tanaim. The reason why I like going through the generations is that many people hear different ideas, throughout their schooling or throughout coming closer to Judaism. They hear different ideas, but when you put things in order, it puts them in a completely different perspective. It says, oh, he lived in during this time. Usually we hear a rabbi, we just hear like a rabbi. We have no idea anything else about him. You don't know the area he lived in, if he lived in Israel, in Babylon, you don't know where he lived. So let's try to put a little picture to this that will give you a very strong understanding on Judaism. So Onkelos lived in the second generation of the Tanaim. Generation number 3, you had Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, very, very famous. He was generation number 3. Generation number 4, you had Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Rashbi, which was attributed to Zohar, and a few others. And in generation 5, you had Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. And I'm not going through all the rabbis during the generation. I'm just giving the ones that I would assume most people would know. Rabbi Yehuda Anasi was...
And Rabbi didn't live in the same time?
Who? I didn't hear you.
Onkelos and Rabbi didn't...
Well, they lived, 2 generations apart, 3 generations apart. So did they overlap? Could be. It's possible. I don't know. But Rabbi Yehuda Nasi lived in the 5th generation. Onkelos was in the 2nd generation. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is the star of the Mishnah. Now, what I mean by that is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. People think that he wrote the Mishnah. This is a very, very incorrect statement. He did not write the Mishnah. He simply edited it. There was a tremendous amount of information that came through these 5 generations of the Tanaim that came down with all. There wasn't just these rabbis. I said there was plenty of rabbis. There was so many rabbis that came during that time, and what they were explaining the oral law. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi went. He edited all the information and he put it into writing into the Mishnah that we have today. Now, why did he all of a sudden put it into writing? He saw that the time was coming that it was basically a now or never situation. That if he doesn't do it right now, the Jews are being exiled. Problems are happening. And if he doesn't do something right now, that's it. It's going to be the end of Judaism. Judaism is not going to be able to continue as we know it. They're not going to remember the oral law. So he decided he's going to be put it into writing. Now, the way that he put it into writing is a fascinating story. It's so amazing because it's not like, Rabbi was just thinking, be like, you know what? I think it's time. He takes out his what is it called when you write a book, but you don't, the transcript? I don't know. What is it called when you write a book? Well, manuscript. Takes out a manuscript from dusty things like, okay, I've been working at this for so long. Okay, now I can publish it. Call Art School doesn't exist yet. Calls all the publishers, Feldheim, right? And he says, okay, listen, I have a thing I want to buy. It wasn't something like that. It had to be a very opportune time. Not only that he felt there was a need for it, but also from the other side, from the secular side, it wasn't so simple to just start writing it. He had to call all the rabbis in from all over the world, come in, and they sat together. It wasn't just him alone that he did it. So how was he able to do this? So in order to understand this, we have to understand of this literally miraculous friendship by 2 people. One was Rabbi and one was by Antoninus. Antoninus was the Roman emperor during that time, and Antoninus and Rabbi, they had a very, very close relationship. So much so that Antoninus' summer home was, and this, by the way, is many attributed to Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, that his summer home was in Caesarea, which was near to Rabbi's home, which was in the Galil. And what he did was, he respected Rabbi so much. And if you go look at the Gemara, Avodah Zarah, page 10b, says that Antoninus so much respected Rebbe that he actually wanted to learn under Rebbe. And what he did is that he put his house, his summer home, next to Rebbe's house, and he made a tunnel from his house to Rebbe's house so he'd be able to sneak back and forth from Rebbe. Now, why did he have to sneak? Because it wouldn't look so good for the Roman government, that the pagan Roman government, be like, all right, or like slowly soon becoming Christian Roman government, be like, okay, listen, I'm going to go learn behind the rabbi. This was a suicide mission. Like, he couldn't go and he couldn't outright, say that he was going to study or going to speak to the biggest rabbi of the world during that time. So, but what Antoninus did, he built this tunnel, and this is where you'll be able to sneak. And he told Rabbi, he says, every time when I am going to come, make sure that nobody's here. No one's allowed to know because of the severity of the situation. Not only was it danger to him, it was a danger to Rebbe also. If the Roman government found out that Rebbe, and it would be a problem for Rebbe and for Antoninus. So no one's allowed to know. What?
His name was Rebbe?
Well, his parents didn't name him, his name is Rebbe. His name was Yehuda Hanasi, but we know him as Rebbe. We know him as Rebbe because of the work that he was able to do. He's known as the rabbi, because of what he did. So, okay. So yeah, when I say Rebbe, I mean Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. What happened is that one time, Rebbe had one of his students over there, Chanina Bar Chama. He was sitting over there, and all of a sudden, Antoninus shows up. He comes in through the back door, through that tunnel, and he says, "What's going on over here?" I says, "I told you that there's no one allowed to be over here." So Rabbi says, "Don't worry about it. This is no ordinary human being. The Rabbi Chanina Bar Chama here is no ordinary human being." So he says, "Really?" So says Antoninus. He says, "Okay." So Antoninus says, and I have to give you a little bit of pre-information beforehand. Antoninus, he was Roman emperor. It wasn't befitting for him to just walk to Rabbi by himself in the tunnel. What he did was he took 2 guards with him. But which guards did he make guards? He took people that were on death row, and he took 2 of them with him. And when he walked under the tunnel, when he got into Rabbi's house, he killed one of them, and then he had only one. And then when he walked back to his house, he killed the other one. And that's how he kept on going back and forth. So. They were guarding. It just wasn't befitting for a king, for a Roman emperor, to go by himself. So
Well, that was nice to get.
it was very, very kind of him. If you know anything about the Roman, the Roman governorship, they didn't have. They didn't have a deficiency of people that were needing death row. So he would take them and he would slaughter one and slaughter other. So he comes in right before he goes into Rabbi. He does his regular ritual, kills one slave, slaughters him, The body stays over there. He walks in. He walks in with one other slave. He walks in and he sees now this scenario. He sees Rabbi is speaking to Rabbi Chanina bar Chama, and he says, what's going on over here? I told you can't do it here. So Rabbi says, don't worry about it. This guy is, this guy says this person is not from the, not your regular typical person. So Antoninus says, oh, is that so? He says, do me a favor. He goes to Rabbi Chanina bar Chama. He says, my servant is outside. Do me a favor. Call him inside over here. So Rabbi Chanina bar Chama goes out. He sees a dead body sitting on the floor over here. So he's thinking, what am I supposed to do? He says, on one hand, I can't go and tell him, listen, he's dead. He should not be a bearer of bad news. I can't run away because it's not going to look good. He run away from the emperor. It's not befitting for the emperor. So he's thinking what to do. He's not knowing what to do. So he starts praying. He starts praying and he brings the guy back to life. He takes the guy back to life. Says, "Come here." He comes here. He walks in and says, "Here's your servant over here." So Antoninus sees all of a sudden his slave all of a sudden back to life. So he goes, "Okay." He says, "All right, I see what you're saying over here." He says, "But no more. Starting now, for reals. No more. You're not going to have anybody. That's coming in. To here." And these were the rabbis that we're dealing with over here. Rabbis who were able to bring people back from the dead. Now they didn't do it, as you see. They do it as a last resort. But we had a few scenarios, a few cases of rabbis actually bringing people back from the dead. So it wasn't your run-of-the-mill type of rabbis. Just your general long-bearded, fellows with the big coats and the big, big hats. You're talking about people that you are on a completely different level that we could even ever imagine. Now, we could go and answer one of the questions that we started off with. We started off with Rivka had a question. She was going in front of a place that's impurity, a baby was kicking. She was going in front of a place of purity, a baby was kicking. She says, what's going on? She went to Shiva Shem Ve'ever. Rashi says over there, what is it referring to? It's referring to Antoninus and Rabbi. What's talking about over here? Now it makes a little bit more sense. Rivka was nervous. What was Rivka nervous? She heard that now she's going to have one good son, one bad son. She says, what's going to be? Says, what's going to be when the bad son is going to go and is going to try to influence the good son? What's going to happen? So what did Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever says? So you don't worry about it. Rashi goes and explains it. It says that eventually out of Esav is going to come somebody by the name of Antoninus, and out of Yaakov is going to come out of him is going to come Rabbi. Just FYI, just a slight little throw in a little bit of Kabbalah going on over here. Rabbi is a Gilgul, a reincarnation of Yaakov, and that Antoninus was a reincarnation of Esav. But putting that aside, she said, she was told by Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever, don't worry. Why didn't you worry? Because from these two, they're going to be able to bring about the continuation of Judaism through the oral law, through the Mishnah, that Rebbe is going to be able to write it down. But how was Rebbe able to write it down? Only because he had that close relationship with the Roman ruler. Because if he wouldn't have had the relationship with the Roman ruler, he wouldn't be able to, you're talking about something that is, you don't understand the level of what he needed to do with this. He had to collect all the rabbis from all over the world. And this wasn't just like a meeting, like a conference table, like everyone. He gave him the permission to do it. He gave them permission. He gave him the okay. Antoninus did so much for Rebbe. We didn't have the time to go into it. He gave him money. He gave him plenty. Rebbe didn't need it. Rebbe was extremely wealthy. And because Rebbe was so wealthy, he also a lot of the rabbis that came in to help him for this writing of the Mishnah, this is what they did for the majority of their lives. Rebbe supported them. Rebbe funded the entire thing from A to Z. So Rebbe was only able to do that only because Antoninus says, Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever to Rivka, don't worry about it, even though this one is bad and this one's good, but you'll see from the bad there's going to come out somebody that's going to be good, and he's going to help the good to go and make sure that the Torah is going to be able to continue. The question that we need to now deal with is, how did Antoninus get that? How did Antoninus, Roman rulers in general are not very known to be like, yeah, I love the rabbis, high five rabbi, yeah, I love you. Yeah. It's just not known for that. How did Antoninus get that? How did Antoninus get the ability, get the spiritual qualities to be able to go through with it? And the answer is, we go look at the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, and this is also based off the explanation of Menorat HaMaor, Rabbi Yitzchak Abuhav, that goes and explains like this. He says, when Rebbe was born, now again, remember, Rebbe was not his name when he was born. His name was Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Again, his name was not Rebbe, and it wasn't Hanasi, it was just Yehuda. But so when he was born, his father, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's father, wanted to circumcise him. There was just one slight problem. You are not allowed to circumcise anybody. And so much so that it was a death penalty. It was a very, very big problem that if you circumcise your child, it was you're getting punished by the Roman government. And Rabbi Yehuda's father said, I don't care, I'm still going to circumcise him. And he went and he circumcised him. The problem was that the Roman officials found out. And they found out that Rebbe was Rebbe was circumcised. So they went and they caught basically the entire Rebbe, his father, Rebbe and his parents, and they said, now you're going to go judge. You're going to go into the Roman government. So what did they do? They didn't have any other option. They started traveling together with the Roman government to go and get judged based on if they had a circumcision, if they did not. as they were traveling, they had to stop by an inn, a hotel. And when they stopped by this hotel, Rebbe's mother and the hotel's owner's mother started to get friendly. They were talking. They says, "Oh, so where are you going? Where are you traveling?" Says, "Oh, we're going to the Roman, to the Roman government." Says, "Why are you going there?" She says, "We're Jewish people, and there's a prohibition on circumcising." And she actually opened up to this hotel's owner's wife, and he says, "Listen," he says, "we actually did circumcise our son. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be, what's going to be, but we did circumcise the son, and that's what we're going to right now." So the hotel owner's wife, is thinking. She says, "Listen," she says, "I also just had a child, roughly about the same age as your child, and he was also a boy." He says, "And this boy, I didn't circumcise him, obviously, because I'm Roman, and wasn't interested in circumcising it." He says, "I have an idea for you. So let's swap babies. You take my baby, I'll take your babies. You'll go up over there. You'll show that the baby is not circumcised, and then on the way back, you pass by the inn, and we'll swap back." And they agreed. All sides agreed to that, and that's what they did. They swapped the babies, and they continued traveling. When they started traveling, they brought the babies. Rebbe's parents brought the baby in front, and the Roman ruler says, so the Roman government says, "I hear that you circumcised your child. By all means, open the diaper." I wasn't a diaper back then. I don't think, what was a... What are companies of diapers? Huggies, thank you. I change my kids' diapers all the time. I don't remember what Huggies and Pampers and whatever it is, right? So they didn't come into existence, yeah? So they went and they opened up the diaper, the cloth, whatever, and they see the baby's not circumcised. So they go to the Roman guy who brought them. He's like, "I don't understand what you're talking about. This guy's not circumcised." So I saw them circumcised. I don't know what you're talking. He looks over there, not circumcised. They more close the case and says, "Yalla, go on your way." So they go and they continue walking back. They walk back and they get back to the hotel. They swap the babies and then they continue. But the baby started, the parents, they still kept in contact. I don't know if they had play dates, whatever they had, and they started, kept in contact. Who was this baby? The baby, we know one of them was Rabbi Yehuda. The other baby was Antoninus. His parents were the owners of the hotel, and he was the one who was switched during that time. Now, not only was he switched during that time, now, Enfamil and all the other baby formulas didn't come into existence either yet. So Rebbe's mother nursed Antoninus, and Antoninus' mother nursed Rebbe. It is interesting halacha. Is a Jewish baby allowed to nurse from a non-Jewish woman?
No.
So it actually is. You are allowed to. Halacha bottom line, it's not recommended, but you are allowed because it clouds the heart. But what does it do when it clouds the heart? Like so much so, here to explain this, we're going to explain Sarah Imenu. When Sarah gave birth to Yitzchak, a lot of people didn't believe that she really gave birth. She was so old, it didn't make sense over here. You adopted. Something was going on up here. So they brought their babies. Let's see if you can nurse. So I always wondered how that conversation, the first one came down. Like knock knock, yes, you're Sarah? Yeah, I don't believe you had a baby. Here, nurse my child. Like that the way that it started. But anyways, that's how it happened. They went, that's not exactly how it happened. The story happened. And she went and she nursed the babies. To prove that the only way that you're able to nurse is actually if you are pregnant and that way the milk is produced. So she went and she nursed the babies. These babies, even though that the parents came not for a good reason, they were still nursed by Sarah. And because they were nursed by Sarah, they still were imbued with Yirat Shamayim. They were imbued with fear of heaven. And later, these are the babies that converted. Later, these are the babies that had that. Now, even if it wasn't for the good reason, it doesn't matter, it was converted. Even more so, you look at, for example, Yishmael. The difference between Yishmael and Esav. Esav, we have a lot of converts that come out of Esav. Yishmael, not so many. Why not? Because Yishmael comes from Hagar, and Esav comes from Rivka. There's a difference when you're nurturing a child. And by the way, they say that the child is more like the mother than the father, because the mother gives an essence to the child. The mother, holds the child for 9 months, and then it nurses the child. So a part of the mother goes into the child, and that is why you have the descendants of Esav more converted, because they had Rivka as an ancestor, as opposed to the mother of Yishmael, which was Hagar, which didn't have the same, obviously, close to the Yirat Shamayim as Rivka had. So we see over here that there's a big difference that takes into effect over here. So from the nursing that Antoninus got from Rebbe's mother, that's what he had the strong affinity all of a sudden to Judaism. And something very interesting also, Rebbe also was nursed from the other side. It was nursed from Antoninus' mother. The oral law is not allowed to be written down. The laws had to be bent a little bit. I mean, obviously, halachically, he was allowed to do what he was able to do, but he had to think a little bit outside the box. Where did he get that from? Because he was nursed from, Antoninus' mother. Now, Still, even so, he was nursed from the mother, and we know, like, for example, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was nursed a little bit, from non-kosher milk, he had his tongue burnt. What about Rabbi? Rabbi was a holy soul. He was still nursed from a non-Jewish woman. So it says that's why he had 13 years of Yisurim. What type of Yisurim? What type of suffering did Rabbi go through? He went through mouth pains. He went through mouth pains for 13 years to go and cleanse himself from any of the impurities. Now again, not that it was a sin, not that it was a problem today, but it was putting himself on a much higher level that he was able to go through all these Yisurim to fix these problems. If we have time, maybe I'll explain a little bit more on that, but I don't know if we'll have time for that today. So, Rebbe realized now that this is the time. He had the opportunity, he had the finances to do it, he had the Roman government backing him, he had a lot of things that were going for him. He says it's now or never. And he decided, you know what, now he's going to put the Mishnah into being. And that's where he put the Mishnah, he edited the Mishnah together. And he separated into, this is Shisasit Mishnah, this is the 6 orders of the Mishnah, this is where he separated it. So you have one of them is Zerayim, which has the agricultural laws. You have number 2, you have the Moed, which is the laws of Shabbat and the festivals. You had Nashim, which speaks about marriage and family law, and Nizikim, which speaks about civil and criminal law, and you have Kochim, which speaks about the temple and divine service, and finally the 6th one, Tarot, which speaks about ritual purities. But even when you look at the Mishnah itself, think of it as chapter headings. You still can't figure everything out just by the Mishnah. It's just like, here's a reminder, shorthand notes. This is what you need to know. So Rebbe still made it oral in a non-oral way, which means here is the information, here is the index cards that you need to learn how to learn the oral law, but you still need the rabbis, you still need to have guidance. Majority of it was still kept oral. Now, while just like when the Torah was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, it was also given with the oral law. When Rebbe wrote down the Mishnah, he also gave over something called Brisos. Now, the Brisos was also the explanation to the Mishnah, and later, this is where it came into writing. Shortly after the Mishnah was written down, there was additional significant changes that were happening to the Jewish life. The Roman government was ruling Israel and wasn't ruling Israel so kindly and so nicely, and a majority of the Jews, not a majority, a lot of the Jews started moving to Babylon, to Babel. And not only that, the sages also moved over there. And this is where you begin the time period of the Amoraim. The Amoraim were the people that lived during the time of the Gemara, when the Gemara was written down. So the Tanaim was during the time of the Mishnah, the Amoraim were during the time of the Gemara. This was 7 generations. So we said the Mishnah was 5 generations, the Gemara was 7 generations. It ranged from the year 200 Common Era to about the year 500 Common Era. I think 499 with the death of Ravina, if you want to be exact. There were 7 generations. So generation number 1, let's go through it really quickly. You have Rav Shmuel, Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Oshia. Generation 2, you have Rav Huna, Rabbi Bar Bachana. Generation number 3, you have Rav Chizda, Rav Sheshes, Rav Zera. Generation number 4, you had Rabbi, Rabbi Yosef. You have generation number 5, Abaya and Rava. Those are very important names. We'll speak about it. We'll come back to them. Generation number 6, you had Rav Papa, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. And generation number 7, you have Ravina and Rav Ashi, which is also very, very important, which we'll speak about very soon. So, during this time, we had, in Surah and Pumbedita, you had all these yeshivot that came into place. You had these big rabbis that came into yeshivot. There was also something called the Yarchei Kala. Anybody know what Yarchei Kala is?
Yes.
They would all
every year the Jews
the 2 months the farmers would go and learn.
Very good. Excellent. Very good. So we have a few more schools that we can recommend. Yeah, we got a few more schools. So Yarchei Kala was a time so the majority of the Jewish people, where did they live? They lived off the land. They were farmers. There were 2 months during the year where farm life, was kind of dead. So what did they do? They didn't go to Miami and to relax over there. They actually went. Again, Miami probably didn't exist yet. What is the famous thing? Fountain Blue definitely didn't come out yet. They actually went to yeshiva for 2 months. So when they weren't working, they actually sat, and this was Yarchei Kala. This is where they went and they learned for 2 months, over there. This is during the time of the Amoraim. The Amoraim, one of the main objectives of the Amoraim was to explain the Mishnah, because the Mishnah was very brief. So now there was a lot of explanation that needed to come out during the Mishnah. That's why when you open up a Gemara, you'll see there's a Mishnah, and then there's a Gemara trying to explain the Mishnah, clarifying the Mishnah. Abaya and Rava, which we mentioned before, these were one of the most esteemed names in the Gemara. What's very interesting is Abaya's father died before he was born, and his mother died at childbirth. So Abaya was born without any parents. Who raised him? Rava, which was the leading sage during that time. And a lot of similar to that scenario. The difference was over here that Abaya and Rabbi had a lot of arguments throughout the entire time, and they were throughout the entire Gemara. It's all you'll find plenty disputes found in the entire Gemara with them. What they did is what did they do? They studied the previous rabbis, and every rabbi kept on studying the previous rabbi and how they explained this and how they explained that regarding the Mishnah. And this went on until the time of Ravina and Rav Ashi. Ravina and Rav Ashi is where they also, again, Rav Ashi saw that it's not the law, the way that it's happening now, there's going to be more problems. The Jews are going to be dispersed yet again. It's going to be, there's a degradation of the Jewish life. We need to write it down again. We need to write down more information because the Mishnah was not enough. Now we need more information. And this is where the Gemara was put into place. The Gemara was put into place talking about over 60 years of editing and all the rabbis, again, coming into being. And also was something very interesting. Rav Ashi was also very wealthy, and he was also, was able to go and to bring everybody together and to go and discuss and put together the Gemara that we know it today. The Gemara came into end by the death of Ravina in the year 499 Common Era, and this is where the Gemara came into a close. The Talmud Yerushalmi, which is not as popular as the Talmud, again, not a great word that I said, but the Talmud Yerushalmi, not as greatly studied, I should say, as a Talmud Bavli. Huh? It's not as, which is very true. It's not as clear. This was written, as you could say, in Eretz Yisrael. The Talmud Bavli was written in Babylon. The Talmud Yerushalmi was written in Eretz Yisrael and Yerushalayim. This, the Talmud Yerushalmi had 4 generations, as opposed to the 7 generations of Talmud Bavli. These generations span from the year, again, from after the Mishnah, from the year about 200 Common Era to about the year 350 Common Era. You had generation number 1, Rabbi Yochanan. You had Reish Lakish. You had generation 2, you had Ula and Rabbi Abo. You had generation number 3, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi. And you also had generation 4, Rabbi Zavid. You had, so these are the way the difference was between the Talmud Yerushalmi was the Talmud Bavli was very organized. Everything was put together, was edited, and was put together. The Talmud Yerushalmi was put together very, there were sentences. It was basically put together by Rabbi Yochanan and his disciples, and it's not as organized as the Talmud Bavli. So that's why it's very difficult to learn it. So you have one sentence over here referring to this, another sentence referring to something else, and it's just going on in that manner. However, people that think that Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi were not connected were very, very, incorrect. You had the people of the rabbis of Yerushalayim and the rabbis of Babel were constantly corresponding with each other, constantly talking with each other, and we see this in both the Gemara. After the Gemara was closed, you had a period known as, the rabbis were known as the Safaraim, and after the Safaraim you had the Geonim. After the Goanim, you had, and this is where I want to more focus on, you have something called the Rishonim. The Rishonim, so you think about the Rishonim, you had, this is where the rabbis first started codifying the Gemara. So the Gemara that we have, it's very difficult to extrapolate the laws, exactly what you need to do it. And even if you are able to do that, there are some laws in this Gemara, and there's some laws in a different Gemara, all on the same subject. So what they did was, what a lot of the rabbis started to do, especially the Rambam, Maimonides, he started codifying everything by category. Everything by particular category. The halacha is over here and all the laws. The halacha for this topic and all the laws. The halacha for this topic and all the laws. You had very, very 3 famous ones. The first one was the Rif, Rabbi Yitzchak Alfasi. The second one you had was you had the Rush, and the third one you had was the Rambam Maimonides. Who all these they codified the law. What they did was is they put the law in together, and this is where the Shulchan Aruch came into being. The Shulchan Aruch, which was again you're talking about a few hundred years after they lived, what the Shulchan Aruch did, he says there was a bunch of rabbis who put in their works. He combined everything into one book, the Shulchan Aruch. And this was brought down by Rabbi Yosef Karo. What he did was, he used these 3 big rabbis, the Rambam, the Rif, and the Rush, and he took the majority view, because let's say if one of them argued with each other, they took the majority view of whatever the halacha was, and that's what he brings down into the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch follows and again, I don't know how much I want to get into it. It follows the same structure as the Arba Turim, which was brought down by the Baal Turim, and this is divided into 4 different categories. Am I losing you yet? Okay, you guys are with me. Okay, okay. So just bear with me a little bit over here, and this is important. But again, I don't know how much will make a difference to you. The part 1 was the Orach Chaim. We have the Mishnah Berurah, for example. It's a explanation of and clarification on the Orach Chaim. The Orach Chaim speaks about laws, about prayer, about synagogue, about Shabbat, and all the holidays. Then you have something called the Yaradeya. The Yaradeya speaks about laws of kashrut, mourning, laws of family purity. Then you have the Even HaEzel, which speaks about marriage and divorce. And then you have Choshen Mishpat, which speaks about financial damages, laws of the Beit Din, laws of witnesses, and so on and so forth. So these are the 4 things that the Shulchan Aruch put into being. And how did he put it into being? Again, he took the majority rule between the Rif, the Rosh, and the Rambam. The Shulchan Aruch was Rav Yosef Karo was a Sephardi, and so the Ramah put together the Ashkenazi customs. So where the customs would be different, that there was a gloss that was written in the Shulchan Aruch, and that was by the Rav Moshe Islovich, which is known as the Ramah. Very interesting. The Shulchan Aruch is known as the Shulchan Aruch, which is like a table. The Ramah is known as the Mapah, the tablecloth. as on it. So he put together the Ashkenazi customs where they were different in the customs is between Sephardi and Ashkenazi. Okay, so that's where we have. That was a very brief overview of where we went from the beginning of time to where we have the halacha that we know it today, and this is where majority the way that we know it today. Now I want to speak a little bit about the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah. Okay, so when I say Kabbalah, what is the first thing that you think in your mind? Which book? The Zohar. Very good. Anybody say anything else other than the Zohar? I didn't hear.
Yeah.
No. What?
Well, technically, yeah, there's other things also.
Well, okay, but again, the majority thinks is a very, very big misunderstanding that Kabbalah is not the Zohar. I mean, the Zohar speaks very Kabbalistic things, but that's not the essence of Kabbalah. Kabbalah existed since the beginning of when Moshe Rabbeinu got the Torah from Hashem. Hashem gave him all the information, and he also gave him the Kabbalistic things as well. It wasn't just it was instituted all of a sudden by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai during the time of the Zohar, which, incidentally, there was a lot of controversy regarding the history of the Zohar. We don't have the time to go through it, but I'll go through very, very briefly with you.
There still is now, though.
Which it shouldn't be.
People are very
Again, and I'm very against. I think I don't agree with that, but they are right. Which what I'll present probably today, with hopefully the sources, we'll see that there is really no reason to do that. One of the big reasons that it becomes problematic is who authored the Zohar. This becomes a very, very controversial. This is a very, very controversial, topic because when the Zohar came out, it was a credit to be written by somebody by the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which it lived in the time of anybody know? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. No one's listening. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, so who cares? During the Tanakh, very good. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. So success. Okay, so now who's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's Rabbi? Rabbi Akiva. Very good. Okay, excellent. All right, we're getting places. All right. Okay. Welcome everybody to Thursday night's class. Okay, so again, I know this topic is a little bit heavy, so bear with me. The controversy was it was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but it wasn't in circulation. It wasn't around. All of a sudden, in the 13th century, roughly in the 13th century, if I remember correctly, Rav Moshe de Leon came out and says, "I found the Zohar." He found the Zohar, and he says, "Listen, this is Zohar from the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and I found it." Now, a lot of people say, "Okay, did he really find it, or did he actually write it himself?" And this is where there was some sort of a dispute. One of the main people that were questioning the authenticity of the Zohar was a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yitzchak Demin Ako. He was, and this you can look in the Shem Agdolim, you can see over here. You see over here that Rabbi Yitzchak Demin Ako, which obviously lived in Akko. He was a Talmud Chaver of the Ramban of the Nachmanides. I'm sorry, and he is a very, very huge Kabbalist, quoted many times in the Reishis Chachma and other works as well. He questioned the authenticity of the Zohar. The problem was, and if you look at the story is cited in the Sefer HaYichsin, and the story is abruptly brought to an end before it comes to the conclusion. Did it or did not? He investigated this for many, many years, and it just abruptly stopped without any conclusion, of what happened. Is the author Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, or really is the author Rabbi Shimon de Leon? So there was a manuscript that was presented by Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan. Why was it presented to Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan? The recent generation passed away, quite some years ago.
1983.
Makes sense. Yeah. So it came into him because they wanted to translate. He was very, very good in translating these type of things. So someone came over to him and says, "I have a manuscript of who? Of Rabbi Yitzchak Demin. Of Rabbi Yitzchak Demin Ako, and I want you to translate it. This is known as the Otzer HaChaim." And he went and he said, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan says, "I'll translate on one condition: I get to keep this copy." There's only one copy of this in the world, one original in this world, and that is in the Gunsberg collection in the Lenin Library in Moscow. But this person was able to procure a copy of it. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan says, "If you want me to translate it on one condition, I get to keep this." And he says, "Fine." And he went and he translated it. And in there, he discovered that it's written there very, very clearly. This is by the same rabbi who questioned the authenticity of the Zohar. And this is why a lot of people nowadays, they question the authenticity authenticity of the Zohar, the people that actually do. Majority of people don't. They all say that we all know that it's contributed already to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but the people that do, they base it off this. And this was discovered, a manuscript that was discovered, that he openly and clearly and unambiguously states very clearly that the Zohar was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Who said this? Rabbi Yitzchak de Minako, the rabbi that went and started questioning the authenticity. He said he came to the conclusion. For some reason, this manuscript didn't make it to print, whatever it wasn't. But now we found it recently. He says it is with 100% validity that this belongs to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and not to Rabbi Yitzchak Minako. So we see over here that the validity and the authenticity of the Zohar is based off the writing was off Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So that being coming into saying the actual Kabbalah was actually brought down, before the 13th century when we had the Zohar. And where was this brought down? It was actually brought down in the Gemara. The Gemara has a lot of Kabbalistic, stuff inside it. However, it's not openly. It's very, very hidden, and it's hidden in something called the Agadata. The Agadata Gemara, so you have the about 1/7 of the Gemara speaks about Agadata. The majority of the Gemara speaks about the halacha, the laws, and then there's Agadata, which appears like stories, parables, mashalim, like things like that. Some people only learn the Agadata, so they're only interested in the stories. Those people generally don't understand what they're talking about. Then there are some people that only learn the halachot, also a very, very big Rabbi Victor Mel says he calls them mental cripples. If they go and they only learn one without the other, because you need both. Why do you need both? Number one, you need to learn the laws, but you also need to learn how to behave and how to that. And there's many, many secrets that are actually brought down in the Agadatas. Now, the sages, the rabbis who wrote the Talmud, were masters of Kabbalah. They were huge Kabbalists. And they couldn't just put the Kabbalah straight out written in there, so they hid it. How did they hid it? They hid it through stories, they hid it through different things. Now when you read the story, you'll be like, okay, very cool. You completely missed the entire boat of the entire Agadata. It's all hidden over there. The reason is that when somebody's impatient and just runs through the Gemara, they're not going to understand the Kabbalistic things. And that's what they wanted. They wanted the impatient reader, the person who doesn't really actually care to, the Kabbalah is not for you. And you don't get it. The people that actually delve and learn into the Gemara, in the way that it should be learned, they're the ones that are able to actually stand the Kabbalistic, intentions that the rabbis intended. One of the idea was also that the Torah needed to be written down. But again, the Torah, it wasn't supposed to be written down. The oral Torah was supposed to be kept orally. So the sages, even in the Gemara, they still kept it in oral tradition. It's hidden in here, but how are you going to find it? Through your rabbis, through learning it through through previous rabbis who understand it from their rabbis and so on and so forth. The Shla brings down that the secrets are hidden all in the Agadata. The Gra writes also that the Agadata contains all the secrets are all in the Agadatas. And you have many, many others. The Rambam also brings down, he says that, the entire world, all the secrets were taught to Moshe Rabbeinu. And this was all brought down, and it's all hidden, but it's all, in different places these are hidden. What's very interesting is that the Kabbalah was supposed to be kept a secret, but only until the Zohar says that in the later generations, right before Mashiach comes, the Kabbalah is going to be spread out to the entire world. Says Rav Yaakov Hillel, a very big Kabbalist nowadays, he says that this has already happened in our generation. We have the spread of Kabbalah already came about. We have it over here, the rulings of many halachic authorities are all based off Kabbalah, which I don't understand. The people says, no, we don't learn Kabbalah, we don't understand Kabbalah. Granted, the majority of people should not be learning Kabbalah. This is meant for the top of the top. But a lot of halachic rulings that we have is based off Kabbalah. And even furthermore, we have many of our prayers are based off Kabbalah. We have all, Rav Hillel also notes that practically all books written on character development, you look at, for example, Misilat Yesharim, they're all based very heavily on Kabbalah. Now, it doesn't say over there the secrets of Kabbalah over there, but it's all based off it. If you know the Kabbalah, you'll be able to go and you'll be able to figure it out. So, two questions very quickly.
What's the exact definition of the word Kabbalah?
Kabbalah literally means a transmission from rabbi to student. It was, you received it. Mikubal from, from that.
Something comes from Kabbalah, it just means it's passed on.
It was passed on, but it was passed on in a secret. It was passed on just by the select few. Generally, the way that Kabbalah, the secrets of the Torah wasn't just taught to everybody. A very, very select few were taught the secrets. And they taught to the people that they chose who the select few was going to be. This was not meant for everybody to know, only for a particular, group.
Comment. Hasidus.
We're going to get to that. That's my next thing that I was going to speak about. Chasidut, what?
What's the difference today? Like, why is it not just...
very good. Why? Very good. So we'll speak about that also. So first of all, before we get that, we have to answer your comment, which I answered, just develop on it. The Chasidus that we have today is very, very strongly, enveloped in Kabbalah. A lot of the Hasidic works are all, very, very deeply rooted in Kabbalah. Now the question is, why nowadays do we have it so spread out when the previous generation we didn't have it? And the answer is... Very good. We needed it. You see, some people didn't even need to come today. So I'm just kidding. Or maybe I'm not. I don't know. We need in the previous generations, they were on such a high level, and not a high level of understanding the Torah, a high level of having fear of God. That the rabbis tell you this is what you need to do. Oh, fine, we understand it. Nowadays, the rabbis tell you something. How do you know? Who are you to tell me? Like, can you prove it to me? Can you prove me the Torah is divine? We didn't have this in the previous generation. Now we need it all of a sudden that the Kabbalah be spread out. Now all the secrets that were kept secrets no longer are able to be kept secrets. People need it, unfortunately. We're sunk into such a level that we need the Kabbalah. We need to be able to understand the secrets in order to be able to understand the foundations of the Torah. And this is why we have it, nowadays, that we have the Kabbalah has spread out the entire world. And this is why we don't have time to speak about it now because it's late, but there is a lot of information when you're learning Haggadah, and especially when you're dealing with, let's say, scientific information in the Gemara, be like, aha, well, you see over here, the Gemara over here, it doesn't make sense according to the scientific, understanding that we have nowadays. The first question that you have to ask is, do you understand the Gemara? Just because it says something straightforward doesn't mean that's what it means. The Gemara, the Haggadah, all these scientific, there's many things that are written the way that it's meant to be understood. Number three, if you're not counting, is that the secrets are actually written in it. So what you actually read is not exactly all that it means. There's a lot more that delves into it. So what you think is a contradiction is not really a contradiction. You don't even know how to read the Gemara. So unfortunately, people, how do they read the Gemara? They read some online translation and be like, aha, you see this is if you don't understand the Gemara, you're not going to be able to read and you're not going to be able to understand really if there is a contradiction, if there's not a contradiction, what really the Gemara is referring to over here, because they're all very, very deep secrets that we're dealing with over here. This is how, and nowadays, so this is basically, I guess this was a very, very quick overview since the beginning of time to the Torah that we have nowadays. Why did I bring this into effect? First of all, this answers a lot of questions. It might not answer to you, but many people have many questions. Was the Torah first? The Torah was copied? How did the Torah come into existence? And this is going to be also lay a foundation for our next couple of classes that we're going to speak about how the rabbis came and how the rabbis learned the Torah, how the rabbis were able to interpret the Torah, how the rabbis instituted laws, how do we have machloket, and so on and so forth that we have in the in the Torah, in the oral law, in the written law, and so on and so forth. Well, the written law, there's no machlokas. Any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So then, if we only need Kabbalah because we're on a lesser level, because we can't accept what the rabbi says, isn't it not a good thing to learn Kabbalah?
Well, for the majority of people, the way that you have it nowadays with the Baal Tshuva movement, they don't even know Aleph Beis, they want to learn Kabbalah already. They have people that don't know anything and they want to learn the Tanya. I was asked already the Tanya is a very Kabbalistic book. Like it's very deep. There's a lot of things. I tell people all the time, you're beginning. What are you learning Kabbalah for? No, you first learn the basics. Learn the Chumash, learn the Gemara. Before you even start thinking about Kabbalah, you have to learn that. You have to have a very, very strong understanding of the basics. If you don't, you're gonna bring more problems, more questions, more things and stuff. Granted, you should not learn Kabbalah until you're on a very, very high level and your rabbis learn it together with you. Even nowadays, however, nowadays, for example, also what I teach a lot of Kabbalistic concepts. I don't actually go delve into in Kabbalah per se, but I teach Kabbalistic concepts. So we speak about reincarnation, we speak about different things that are based off Kabbalah, but we don't. If you realize, we don't go into very, very strong depths and details in these subjects, because that you do need to be in a very, very high level, and you have to have a very strong understanding of the oral law, the written law, and everything. All the halachot and so on and so forth. So. Nowadays, when you read all these things, they're just all based off Kabbalistic ideas. That's not a problem to read. I read all these Musar books, and you should read them. All these things that even though they have Kabbalistic concepts inside them, you should still go and still read it. Any of the Ramchal books. Ramchal was a huge Kabbalist. So you have, Derech Hashem, all these things are very, very heavy in Kabbalah, but it might not look to you at Kabbalah because, we don't really understand Kabbalah. There's many people who think they know. I learned Kabbalah with my rabbi. I'm like, do you know how to spell Kabbalah in Hebrew? And that should answer any of my further questions I needed. Any other questions?
Like in prophecy, because you mentioned that before. Was it did they hear God's voice, or they got ideas in their head and
No, they heard the voice. They heard the voice. Yeah.
Was that also how the whole Torah and everything was also written through Hashem's voice? It was written through
prophecy. It was Moshe Rabbeinu, when he wrote the Torah, it was like a secretary dictating what God was telling him to write. That's how it was.
But the Mishnah and Gemara were not written like that. They were written off of just ideas
divine,
from
but it was still written with divine inspiration.
Right.
Ruach HaKodesh. Yeah, it was still.
Do we still have that now to a point?
you have the biggest rabbis in the world. They do have, and I have had personal stories when I've met with big rabbis that they were telling me stuff, or I heard things that, directly from them, that there was no way that they would, it was just crazy. I'll tell you, I don't know if I ever said this, and my brother hears this, he's not going to be so happy that I'm telling this story. We went, but again, no one knows which brother it was. Okay, so when my family, we were in Eretz Yisrael. We were in Israel not too long ago, maybe a year or two ago, I don't remember, for a family wedding. And we all went to Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, which is one of the Gadol Adar during in our generation. And Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, he's very particular that a man should not wear a watch. A man should not wear a watch. Or whatever reasons, we're not going to get into it. He doesn't want a man to wear a watch. We all went in to see him. We were able, it wasn't a group of people. It was just us, just my family. We went to see him. And what's so amazing about Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, and this is something that I recommend whoever's in Israel to go and try to see him, even if it's not just for a bracha, just to see how he learns what other people are around him. It was so unbelievable. Because you have people, and by people I mean me, who are like sitting behind Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, like taking a picture with him, and he doesn't even look up. It's not like he's like posing. It's not like he is looking in the Gemara the entire time. Like, there are people walking, nowadays, I teach, Baruch Hashem, I teach in a few different locations. Every single class, without a fail, a door opens, everyone looks over there. Everyone's there. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, you could have someone standing 2 inches away from him. He's still in the Gemara. He's not looking up. The doors are opening. People are talking. People are screaming. He is over there. He's sitting over there. You see his finger going down. The finger doesn't go side by side. His fingers go straight down. That's how he reads. He just scans through like that. It looks like he's like a photocopy machine, just like whatever it is. It's like scanning through the entire thing. And he's going over there. People are taking pictures with him. People are doing that. He doesn't look up. When does he look up? The second that his gabbai, which let's say his grandson, whatever it is, screams at him, the rabbi, there are people here, they want a bracha. He looks up for a second, he says bua, which stands for bracha and atzlacha, whatever it is, and maybe he goes a little bit more, depending if you ask him a question, and he goes right back down. He doesn't waste a second, this rabbi. Doesn't waste a single second. Every single second is inside over there. So, we're sitting over there, my entire family, and I don't know, no one told us that you're not supposed to wear, watches. He's very against, men wearing watches. My brother had a watch on. And we all walk into the room. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky was sitting there and he was learning inside over here. Suddenly he looks up, someone has a watch, please take it off right now. And he goes right back inside over there. Nothing like that. And I was like, and my brother's like, he takes it off quickly, puts it in his pocket, They told me, he says, make sure don't bring any smartphones either in there. He says, leave your smartphones in the car. So something called, all right, no watches, no smartphone, right? You got a pocket watch. What?
It's a minhag to give like chassan.
Whatever. I'm not going to get into the whole idea with watches now, and the halacha and what there's a so. Yeah, you got to get put in your vest. This is particularly for men, not for women. For women, he doesn't know that it's a problem. But you see over here, like eyewitnesses firsthand. Like how did he know that? Would he had a metal detector? Like going in over there and be like, okay, he scrolls up his iPad. Chas shalom. Of course not. You're talking about rabbis that have a different level. I have a few other stories which we don't, I probably can't say so much on camera that whatever it is, he's on a different level than anybody else. Yeah.
So why doesn't he like the watch?
I don't want to get into that. So that's another topic in its entirety with the halacha, the beged isha, whatever, different things on what he holds on watches.
So is agada or agada straight Kabbalah or it's a Kabbalistic concept?
Kabbalistic ideas hidden inside the Gemara.
But it's not Kabbalistic concepts. It's
well,
Kabbalah.
It depends on which Gemara. Depending on it's Kabbalah is hidden inside there. Yeah. Any other questions?
Isn't like real like Kabbalah like meditation and like saying like divine names and all that stuff?
Well, I don't. Again, it doesn't. Yeah, so it doesn't speak about it in that essence per se. In the majority of Agadata, but you do have different things that are that do hint to these deep stuff. Now, not everything does. Now, granted, the majority of that the heavy Kabbalah, we're talking about Shemus HaKadoshim and the Machshavas and the meditations that you need to have. That's ready, serious Kabbalistic stuff. You have the Zohar, you have you have different Kabbalists throughout the time. The Rizal brought down how he's supposed to have the Kabbanas. You have a lot of different, the Siddur Rashad. You have a lot of different Kabbalists that go and explain on how the Kabbanas that you have to have. That majority was kept off by Rabbi the student. But even those, the Shemus HaKadoshim, those are all hidden very secretly in the written law, in the Chumash. The names of a God is all there. It's all different letters, skips, whatever. It's all there. Any other questions? Yeah.
How do you know if any rabbis would
So that's a very good question. How do we know that maybe rabbis made a mistake and completely, twisted the idea in that? B'ezrat Hashem, I would want to speak about it in the coming classes. If did the rabbis make up any laws? Did they, how did they mess it out? How did they come to that conclusion? So B'ezrat Hashem, we'll speak about that. Excellent question. We'll speak about that because that's a whole class in itself. Any other questions? No? Okay. Chazak Abo.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.